traditionally when
Recording is on.
Traditionally when people think about future and innovation, everyone goes to the default design futures cone by Boros in 2003. And for those who don't know it, I'm going to give a super quick, let me just turn this on. Everyone can see my awesome green map. Okay, cool. Explanation of what the chart is. So we have a current time and we have a cone of the future, which projects forward in time, where we have a plausible, a possible, a probable, and a preferable state. Now, there are many different representations of this cone, but I tried to make one that more or less is a universal or generalized approach that people present when they talk about the futures. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the orange lines connecting, what this is are different ways that people try to predict what's going to happen in the future, right? They do this from one or two ways. They either forecast, which is looking at the current state of things now and try to predict what's going to happen in the future, or what they do is backcasting, which is given a future predictive state, they try to say, okay, how might we have gotten here? And retrospectively try to figure out how this is going to work. Now, although the futures cone is used a lot in the space of innovation and design, it's unfortunately fails to it fails to validate it, right? The futures cone is merely used as a speculation device, and it doesn't give designers, creatives, researchers a space that they can really predict from a space of understanding. It's purely speculative. So at Futurity, what we tried to do is we try to break that mold. And yeah, let me turn off my mouse cursor. I won't be needing this anymore. Okay. And in doing so, we really try to have, we have a 6-step approach, which we try to package into 3 different categories: analysis, artifact, and action. And I am going to now, given our 3, I'm sorry, let me step back. Yeah, given analysis, artifacts, and action, what we try to do is we gather data to understand a specific space. And an example of that is, so a couple months ago when I first met Mark and Cece and Alpha, we tried to, well, they were working on the problem of the future of commerce. And what we decided to do within this space was, given the problem, right, and in this, the problem of the futures cone, what we decided to do is just to gather as much information as we possibly can about commercial transactions. What this means is, when you're thinking about a future domain, you have to step back and do a whole bunch of research and analysis on the different aspects of the whole system. And what that means is we have to break down different parts of it. And when you look at large-scale commercial systems and markets that affect it, there's 2 main regions that stood out to us when we looked at this cycle, right? And that's technology and what we're calling transaction frictions. So in the first step, in gathering information, we then dive deeper into technology and into transaction frictions. So when we look at how technology is going to be moving forward, given the state of the world right now and what data is telling us, is that with the advancements in Internet of Things, which is ubiquitous technology, and artificial intelligence, and just the fact that almost everyone has, I'm sorry about that. Okay, everyone has a smart assistant in their home. It shows that, okay, technology is going to move into a space where it's going to be a lot more ubiquitous and a lot more advanced. And also, if you look at the data in supply chains, there's a lot of it showing that there's what we call transaction frictions, which are a lot of gaps, right? Gaps either in how we're looking at logistics or gaps in the market. And what these gaps do is they fundamentally cost billions of dollars. Now, when we take this data when we took this data, given the problem that we had, what we decided to do was to ask then the question, how can technology be used to give us a space where we can answer some of these questions, or we can reduce some of these problems, we can save some money. And in doing so, then we decided to gather even more data, right? When you look at examples of delivery systems, or you look at different types of recommender systems, and you look at different types of services that can optimize logistics. So what we then did was further broaden, right, our scope of understanding. And we did it in a way such that we gathered as much information as we possibly could, but then we kind of got on the fringes of the data, where we really said, okay, we don't know what's going to be happening next. And this is step number 2, which is, kind of identifying the uncertainty that we have. And from this uncertainty, we then said, okay, well, we have all these set of problems, we have all these possible solutions. So why don't we try to kind of consolidate some of these speculations together? And we have step number 3, which is consolidating narrative. And for us, that's really just kind of prototyping ideas and spitballing things and seeing, okay, does this make sense? Does this not make sense? How can this be mixed and matched? And we decided to come up with 2 separate narratives, which are in a future space where we have technology that can help us become better consumers and can help us be better global inhabitants by optimizing supply chains and making it such that all the loss that's happening, whether it be in logistics or information or financial, can be addressed. What would these things look like, right? If we needed to build some kind of experimental space where people can understand the scope of the problem and be equipped with tools to know how to address this problem, what would this look like? So this is step number 3. From here, then, we took it further and we said, okay, let's try to design something, right? If we're talking about a future kitchen, if we're talking about an interactive game, what stuff can we look at now to help us get there? And this, I imagine a lot of people in the audience are design creatives. And this personally, for me, is one of the most exciting parts of the project, where we can sit down and look at weird and wonky things and new designs and interactive installations and also historical simulations and video games, and try to map together some kind of, again, further understanding that can support one experience over another. And in doing so, we came up with 2 different experiences. With the help from some friends who help us in production, we came up with one experience that we're calling Banana World. And Banana World is kind of like, I'm sure everyone has heard of The Sims. Banana World is kind of like a smaller version of The Sims if it was done where you can set up your own supply chains all based around bananas. And what we decided to do was Banana World is a space where you can play and tinker with different aspects of the supply chain to better understand how optimization works. So we imagine this being further developed into a tool that can be used for an educational experience. People can sit down, understand how supply chain works, understand how AI can be used to optimize different aspects of supply chains, and then understand how this AI can be used as a means to create an experience that the consumer can be educated about the actions that they have and the demands that they put on ecological and economic systems. The second project that we came up with was this embedded artifact in the home in the home kitchen, right? And this is, we're calling it Concord. And Concord we have defined as this modular piece of furniture that can be used the same way. Right now we have smart speakers and smart toasters. We're kind of taking it to the next level. So what happens if your kitchen and your fridge and all of your appliances can kind of recommend different type of experience, or sorry, recommend different type of items for you. And in so creating experiences where you can, again, become educated about how the transactions you have can be both smarter, but at the same time kind of be mundane, right? So a challenge for us was when creating Concord, how can we have an experience that is something that is going to be regular, that every single day you're going to walk into your kitchen, every single day you're going to talk to something that's going to say, hey, I recommend you have this instead of that because this either meets macronutrients, either is more convenient for you, either is, 15 of your neighbors are also getting the same thing. So to reduce CO2, I recommend this. So all these different types of aspects within the purchasing space, we try to pilot. If you look at the two pieces as individual pieces and you look at them as they relate to the supply chain, for us, number 4 really is a way that we can experiment in 2 different domains. Concord was specifically an interface experiment. How is someone going to interact with our understanding? How are they going to respond to the experiences that we're creating for the user? Banana World was something where we're purely speculating on infrastructure. How is optimization going to work, right? How is data going to be shared across different spaces? How is this data then going to be stored and shared across different actors within that space to optimize even further? So for us, number 4 really is an awesome experiment where when we map out the whole system of a problem, we can further define our narratives and say, okay, we want to hone in on this aspect. We want to hone in on this aspect. And the point of Futurity is to experiment and pilot and use the findings that we have in steps 1 and 2, right? Research and understand uncertainty, to then further develop the narratives to address the problem at different levels. And it doesn't necessarily need to be human focused, which I think is an awesome thing about Futurity, right? Just the fact that we can experiment on what are machines going to be doing in this space, I think is very novel. And it's something that not many people in the design world are addressing. So for the next steps, 5 and 6, the plans were to pilot these 2 products at Mobile World Congress and Milan Design Week. However, I'm sure as everyone knows, the world is in a weird place right now. And Mobile World Congress has been canceled, and so has Milan Design Week. So what we're trying to do is migrate the experiences we have into purely digital experiences. And the point of doing that then is to kind of just throw it out there and allow anyone and everyone to interact with or give us feedback on what they thought when they felt when they interacted with our future fridge experience. How did it feel setting up the different modular parts? What do you think about interacting with something daily? Do you think it could be useful to understand the cost of an item that goes just beyond the financial cost, but talk about social and environmental impacts? So we use this purely as a tool to not only better the product as we develop, but to even further create more data. And I think this is one of the biggest and most valuable processes in Futurity, because from this data, then we absorb it back into our analysis, which is steps 1 and 2, where then we can further develop and further push our understanding of a physical space. So actually, let me jump back so everyone can see them all together again. Yeah. So when you look at steps 1 through 6, we try to package that together into the concept of analysis, artifact, and action, where steps 1 and 2 are in analysis, 3 and 4 are in artifact, and 4 and 5 are in action, right? We understand the space, we ask questions about the space, we try to come up with hypotheses, we try to experiment, we gather insights, and we absorb it all back together and just do this process over and over and over again. So, yeah, the process of Futurity is just that. What we're doing right now is honing in on 4 different spaces. We are doing this process for commerce or autonomous commerce. We're doing it for our NeuroLab, which is based on neural interfaces. We're doing this on our lab called Futurity, which is based around the future of food. And finally, we're doing the same for our gender lab, which is talking about and challenging gender roles in society. So these labs then are kind of representations of this cycle over the course of a year. And what we do is then presenting this to clients as packages or collaborators as a way that they can work with us to create, whether it be specific analyses, artifacts, or actions over the course of the year to try to really understand the whole domain space, not just something that's user-facing or supply chain focused or industry specific or infrastructure specific, but to try to get a whole system level understanding of a domain. So I apologize for speaking very fast. I do that a lot. But that being said, long and short, if anyone is interested in learning more about Futurity or about how we can help you or a specific client that you have hone in on a project and how our approach can help you better understand your own practice, please reach out. And with that, I just want to thank everyone for their time, and I welcome your tons of questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to turn on my camera.
So any questions? Okay,
Awesome.
I was wondering a little bit about this digital experience, how they work. I mean, how do you do them?
So the plan is for these experiences to kind of be very bespoke, right, and live as individual prototypes or products. So originally, this kitchen experience was going to be presented as an installation at Milan Design Week, but because it got canceled, the plan is to try to move into a digital and possibly even an augmented reality space where we can kind of simulate the same thing that you would do in the installation on a website. Ideally, though, these experiences are not limited to digital experiences, or sorry, not limited to web experiences, right? So you don't need to do it on your computer. The plan is to use this experimentation to create installations or to create something that is more tangible as well.
Okay, there is a question in the chat by Sophia. She asking, did you build the artifacts in order to present to the shows? Okay,
Yes.
answered.
Yes.
And where we will be able, like, to, if we want to experience this kitchen, where we can go to?
Yeah. So as soon as we have something that is further developed in a way that we can proudly present what the plan is for to put it on the Futurity or to announce it on the Futurity website, and then find the proper space where we can share this and just get as much information back as we want. Like it's kind of like really these prototypes and these artifacts are built so that they're kind of like questionnaires, right? They're like a hidden experience to just kind of understand how the individual is responding to it. So as soon as we have something that's ready, we'll announce it. I don't think it'd be a couple. The plan was to have it for Milan Design Week, and because that got pushed back, we decided to push things a little further with it. So it should be ready soon.
I'm very curious to see it. I mean, to know a little bit more about it.
Any other questions? Could you describe a bit better on how different labs? Okay, so what I did in the presentation was walk through the high-level approach of what we have for the e-commerce lab. Now the labs are going to be kind of like domain spaces or domain-specific spaces where we're going to gather as much information from, or as much information out there from everywhere as we possibly can get, and then just start realizing what questions do we have within that space. And then it is to try to answer some of these questions with the artifacts. And then these experiences will be presented as packages to clients over the course of a year. Does that answer your question, Charlotte?
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions?
How did you choose the 4 labs? Why the food? Why the commerce? How did you decide like to go to this kind of subjects?
I can try to answer that. We have the e-commerce project we have started actually a year and a half ago. We have a lot of research already being done in that area, so we are continuing with that. Gender is something that I am very much interested in because of my experience with all women, but just basically because I think it's a very important issue that we need to investigate more. Food is a topic that I also have done some work in, and also as well as Mark. And Mark has a lot of experience in biotech and especially in neural interfaces. So these are 4 domains that we have worked in. So that's where we're starting from.
And the idea is to open to new themes or to just stick to that ones?
I think eventually we'll be opening up more topics as needed.
End of the year too.
Huh?
At the end of the year.
At the end of the year, yeah. And I also wanted to add one of the reason why we started Futurity is because as a lot of us have noticed, things are changing very, very fast. A lot of the times we design for now, and very, very quickly it's already outdated. So a lot of businesses can't keep up. A lot of the designs can't keep up. So how do we begin to think about the future and bring them closer to now, but not just any future, but a better future. And that's predominantly our objective. So stay ahead of the game, think further than the immediate and react accordingly.
And when you say future, it's what is in your mind? I mean, you pretend that this is going to be 2 years, 3 years, 10 years.
The horizon. Yes. So I wanted to add a few things. So when we talk about future, it's actually futures, right? So even though we all live in the same world and the same the same kind of reality. The truth is we all have very different realities. We all have different perspectives, and we all have different cultures and different history, and those will create different futures for different people. And we have to look at all aspects of it. And one of the reason, just to continue on this gender theme, is because if we're only looking at future from the Western male-dominant perspective, the future is very, very different than if we looked at the female perspective, or if we looked at the Asian perspective, or if we looked at the African perspective. So how can we incorporate some of these different perspectives into a more communal future? That is also something that we're very much interested in. So that's one. In terms of horizon, that's also very relative, right? For us, the future might be 5 years from now, but from someone who is from a developing country, we are their future, right? So the time is completely relative in terms of whom or what community you're talking to, and what you are designing and what context you're designing within. But I think it is not an end. We don't look at horizons as if we're designing for 30 years out or 40 years out. No. We're designing in a kind of very agile, very curated a perspective for different communities. So, I know it's a very vague answer, but I think also we can't think of an absolute, especially in these times of uncertainty.
And also, if I can add, the whole iterative process of getting data, putting it out there, testing it, and seeing how people feel about it, we're always going to be pushing that further and further and further. So whatever date we do happen to start at, it's always, over the course of honing in on a topic, it's always going to be going further and further and further into the future. Any other questions?
It would be great also to hear from some of you guys. It doesn't even have to be a question format. If you guys want to, share your thoughts or anything at all, we'll be happy to exchange.
If you are over there.
Carlota, you can put on your microphone. It would be nice to hear your voice.
Okay, no, I didn't want to interfere with the speakers. So maybe my question is, what's not really clear to me is somehow, so it seems that the prototypes you want to develop are even looking ahead the client's needs. So somehow you envision what could be the issue in the future and then present a solution even before the clients sees the problem somehow. I don't know if it's clear, my question.
Yeah. Lucas, do you mind if I jump into this one?
Go ahead.
So one of the things about forecasting or future studies is that a lot of times it's in this area called the unknown unknown, meaning that you don't even know what you don't know. And so when you're talking about that, these potential clients of ours, they might not even know what they don't know. And so if they don't know what they don't know, they can't really know what their needs are. And so what we're trying to do is we are trying to provide and deliver the information, the studies, the insights, the research that we have done, as well as the design component to it that is within those contexts, so that they could start seeing that possibility and that experience in the future. And so we actually create our work, and the reason why we're a studio, we're not a consultancy or an agency, is that we create the work first, and then we present these futures to the clients, like you said, before they even realize that they may or may not have that need. And then posteriorly, if they have any further, work that they need to be developed, we can do that as well. But for now, what we wanted to do is be able to paint that picture for them to see. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And your clients are open-minded? I mean, when you present all these kind of of new things, no? Sometimes perhaps they are a little bit shocked, or...
I think Mark wants to take that question.
I was gonna say, that's how we know we're doing our job. If we have this echo thing, that means it's from the future. Okay. That's how we know we're doing our job, because if they come and say, okay, I'll just say, yesterday we were looking at a company that we really liked their website, and they were showing some of their client work, and it was the future of sneaker socks. Like these socks that you wear inside a sneaker, they had better moisture wicking capabilities. And honestly, I couldn't imagine wasting the time on the future of sneaker socks. If it's something that is really going to make a difference, it isn't going to be, it's not something that maybe is on their radar right now, but should be. So that's by definition, the stuff we want to be doing. We don't want to be looking at what are the colors for car paint in the next 3 years. We don't want to be looking at stuff that is, fairly incremental from where we are right now. So I think our job, when we say, make a better future happen faster, it's to find things that seem implausible or even impossible, and then actually engineer a way to make them. They might not always be desirable for everybody. Like one of the examples that we were talking about with this frictionless kitchen, the thing that Lucas was talking about. So there's a lot going on right now with delivery of food from grocery stores and from restaurants. And on the one hand, sure, that's convenient, that's nice. On one hand, it saves households a lot of money. We spend something like 40 or 60 hours a month doing things like that, administrative things. So there's a lot of benefits there. If you're in the US, those delivery services are a lot less carbon intensive way to get things delivered to houses than people driving their SUVs, one-way trips and stuff like that. So there's the benefits, but then also, well, maybe, grocery stores, a lot of grocery stores would go away, a lot of jobs would go away. People that work in restaurants, there won't be as many restaurants and things like that. So there's downsides too. So if you work in the restaurant industry or you work in the automotive industry and people don't need cars and they don't need restaurants as much, you need to know about that. And so that's the kind of thing that we want to basically work through, even if it means that their current business is going to go away completely. That's something that they should plan for and work around. And if they have enough time, they can do it.
There is a question of Magda in the chat.
Okay, so let's see. There are.
If you want, Magda, you can ask that.
Just the last one? Okay. So can you give us some examples of potential clients and why they might reach out to you for help? I'll tell you, the potential client list is pretty easy because it's basically the clients, at least for me, that I was working with before we started this one. And that's companies that do spend a lot on R&D. So, we don't, if you look at all of our labs, they tend to be around things where there's a physical component to it. So if you were in banking or advertising, we're probably not going to help out very much there because we don't think a lot about the future of banking or the future of advertising. But food and neural interfaces and commerce in the sense that we're looking at it, these are all things where there's an interaction with the physical world. And so companies like a car company, has a huge R&D budget. A chemical company or a food manufacturer, they all spend a lot on R&D. So we're essentially trying to slot in about, tell them what you should be doing R&D about next. Here's something where there's some technical and societal and other trends that are coming together, and they're going to converge in roughly the time frame that you spend your R&D budget on. If that's 5 or 10 years, typically. So not 18 months or 24 months. But part of the organization that does just think long-term and works in a long-term space, that's who we want to work with.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have another question. Did you collaborate with people for the different labs? Did you collaborate with people that are experts in different fields to build up your prototypes?
Yeah, as Cici said, we actually chose these 4 labs because they happen to be things where we've done a lot of work directly. But even in these cases, our clients, and 2, our collaborators, would have expertise in other areas. So this is very much an experiment for us in a lot of ways about the labs themselves, about a membership model for what typically would be more consulting services and things like that. And I think at one level, with everything going on this year, we just like to be able to put food on the table. And if we get through the year having done that, we'll consider it a success. But we're learning a lot by finding out what people jump onto, what they say no to, what they're not interested in, and what they're begging for we can't find other places.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think the question came up, how are we going to do with these labs? So we actually kind of engineered in an obsolescence. The idea is that each one of these labs by the end of the year should produce something, artifacts, data, research, that our clients can take and make their own thing with. And they won't need us anymore to do that. And we will move on to the next thing. We're not sure what those things will be, but we want to find that out over the course of the year. So gender, for example, that was a topic that came up, and we thought, okay, I think we can work this in with our current workload. But there are lots of other things that we'd love to dive into, but right now we're pretty full with what we've got. Also, the nice thing about going into areas that are that far ahead is nobody's an expert. nobody is. So you don't really have competition from anybody in the sense that, hey, are you an expert in autonomous commerce? We made that up, right? Neural interfaces, it's basically a bunch of hackers. So by choosing topics where there literally are no other people that know what's going on either, we want to always be doing that, basically finding the thing where experts are needed and then build that expertise up. So there's a question, if you said about working with the fashion industry right now, there are many interrogations that will work in the future without causing so much damage and problems with the supply chain. So actually within autonomous commerce, we have one module that's about apparel, and yet specifically addressing some of these issues around fast fashion. So there are a lot of environmental impacts along with that, and that's one angle of it. But the other one is the rise of these like subscription and direct-to-consumer clothing companies. So Rent the Runway and Stitch Fix. These companies basically are trying to have you do for your clothes what you would do with say movies or renting a room on Airbnb. You don't own things; you just use them when you need them. And so what we're trying to understand is essentially, what are the things that people would continue to purchase, and what are the things that people would more use as needed in the future. So it's unlikely that we're going to use underwear services, right? So, I just get a new box of underwear that somebody else wore last week. Nobody's going to like that. But things that we would normally buy and wear for maybe one season or even one time, people do spend a lot of money on those things. And so we're looking at how, essentially what would the impact be on the fashion industry? How could you design clothes that would be more sort of modular and interchangeable? What does that do to the market for washers and dryers and things like that we have in our homes? All those things could potentially become services, become like lava lockers here in Barcelona, where you don't do it at home, you let other people do that work for you.
So do we have more questions?
Thank you, Cecilia. Well, we really look forward to seeing all of you back when Mob is open again. And I think it's hard to package all of this stuff down into even a 1 week conversation or a lifetime conversation, much less a 20-minute one. So the exciting thing is to talk about the future of interfaces or the future of commerce and things that really are going to directly impact some of the work that other people at Mob are working on. So, e-commerce is definitely the extension of voice, of the user interface to voice interfaces, and of e-commerce and mobile commerce to autonomous commerce. Neural interfaces are also, something where it could just be, the thing that comes after AR and VR. And so, as Lucas was saying, we're trying to develop a lot of these things, and we'd love to collaborate with other people at Mob. We're just getting our feet wet on AR and VR, and I know a lot of people there have worked on that. We're working on mobile commerce, and maybe that's something that's going to impact something that you're developing. So, yeah, we look forward to having a coffee or a lunch with you when we're back, and all other kinds of interactions. We're downstairs at Mob by Len.
Hopefully that'll be only in a couple weeks or couple months.
Not long future, we hope.
I hope.
Okay, so if nobody has any other question, we can just finish here. You have the email of Cecilia in the chat. If you have any further questions, we will post some information about the talk in Mob's social medias. And this, as I said at the beginning of the talk, we will have this kind of talks every week. So keep an eye in the social medias of Mob and also in Eventbrite.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.